Alright, so welcome back to part 2 of the tournament. A quick recap from part 1. We got Astegon leading the pack for the pals that couldn't finish off the fight, followed by Chillet, Bootmon Christ, and Chicopee. And then so far Blasphemous Rio has been the pal to get a win, and it got 2 out of 2 wins. And its best time was a 1:47. So we're gonna move on with a couple of other armies and see. I think I'm gonna do another 5 for this part, and we're gonna see if anyone can place higher than Rio or actually get the W itself. So we're gonna start off with the Anubis army. Now I'm not expecting a whole lot from it here. It is an army I made just because it placed in the top 3 in that PAL poll that Pocket Pure did, the favorite PAL competition. It's made more for fighting Rio, but we're gonna try it out here against Xenolord. It does have a very high attack stat, and I gave them all Meteorine, so it's gonna be 13 Meteorines coming down. Not a whole lot of damage to start the fight off. And then Anubis does have this partner skill that it is supposed to dodge attacks, but from my own experience with Anubis, that partner skill, I've yet to see it be very useful. I feel like it has a negative effect where it moves the PAL into attacks more than it actually helps it. So I'm not sure how helpful it really is. There was a theory of building these Anubises just for the survivability of that, but so far it hasn't really been the case. You will see them sort of shift side to side and just get hit more in most cases. So pretty questionable partner skill as a raid army. It doesn't really work out the way I was hoping. And then just no resistance to Xenolord's attacks. Maybe as Ultra it would resist the stone beat, but that's not super important. Rock Burst was also not a good option. I did try some Rock Burst builds, but just something about Xenolord's hitbox that even if you're super close to him, you rarely hit enough Rock Burst to make it worth running. It is decent for clearing out the ads if they all clump up, but it just wasn't a very high DPS increase. So unfortunately Anubis didn't do super well. As you can see, they kind of get the job done in terms of DPS. They do work pretty well if you include a bunch of PAL pods, but they do also tend to get stuck. I feel like the smaller PALs got stuck a lot in the PAL pods. Meteorine coming in a little bit too late here to make a big difference with the ads, and you're left with just 4 Anubis standing once the first ad wave is done. Not that great. They would be probably pretty good. You can see that they're just shifting side to side. They would be pretty good if the Rock Burst was a little bit stronger. But right now, I feel like letting go of some other skills just for the Ground Smash and Rock Burst combo was not very worth it. And then they also jump back. Since they're not Dark or Electric, they jump back for Bog Blast and miss some Rock Burst there as well. So not a great display there, but they didn't really have the elements to pull it off. So now it's time for the Jormuntide Ignis raid army. The first Feybreak raid army I made for the first kill of Xenolord, and the one used as well for those first couple of videos I had with Xenolord before the Palpal strategy was really created. But now I'm not using Absolute Frost anymore. It turns out that Absolute Frost was a little bit of a DPS loss. Just Beam Slicer, Blast Cannon, and Holy Burst seems to be the best build. I tried some Lightning Streak builds. I've done a lot of skill testing with this army since it was the first one I made. So this is just overall the one that seems most successful. And I actually never went down the breeding path for Meteorine. I gave them all Absolute Frost. Probably would have been a little bit better if I'd given maybe 5 or 6 of them Meteorine as well. But for now, just having these Beam Slicer and Blast Cannon will have to do. But there is still, if I'd remade this army, I probably would have given them at least Meteorine. Don't think Double Blizzard Spike would have been worth it, or Absolute Frost. Just adding maybe 5 or 6 Meteorines would probably have been a good option. But this is a lot of DPS. Like, Meteorine is not good against Xenolord itself. It's just for clearing ads. And this Beam Slicer Blast Cannon combo seems to get the job done pretty well. There wasn't a whole lot of survival on those ads. Jormuntide Ignis, a pretty big pal. It is competing mostly with Rio since it is this dragon. They have a dragon fire pal. They have the same total stats. It's just that Ignis is one of the highest stat pals that you can breed for. It's not a raid pal and it's not a legendary pal, so you can get any skill you want on it from those Absolute Frosts and stuff like that. Meteor Rain, you can get legend on it. It's just a little bit big. So against Ultra, it performs a little bit worse than against this raid just due to Holy Burst and a little bit with Stone Beat as well. It doesn't resist Stone Beat, but most pals get killed by Stone Beat. Not taking burn damage is a huge plus, high attack stat, and then it also works well with the Palpod strategy. It doesn't bug out a lot, probably because it is pretty big. I found that the Orserks and the Anubises and pals of that size usually got stuck. So almost a 2-minute kill there, pretty quickly, and those Ignises went down after the boss went down. So I'm going to count that as a 0, but you could count it as a 2 pals killed, I guess. I'm going to count it as a 0 because they died afterwards. Just because I'm biased as well. I do like Ignis, but I did try a couple of builds on it, and you really want that Beam Slicer Blast Cannon one if you don't have the Meteorine. I probably should have gone for Meteorine, but it's fine. Then we have these Faleris Aquas. I did a video on them recently, but in another base, so hopefully they work a little bit better in this base is the theory. I did also switch base location just for this tournament, just to not have to remove all the Palpods in my normal raid base. I wanted a base on Feybreak, and this, I feel like this is probably the better option. It does have some issues with sometimes the pals, like the Xenovators and Xenoguards, end up on the cliffs, and sometimes my own pals sort of get knocked onto the cliff. So I didn't think it was a great raid base, but it does have this benefit that Faleris Aqua won't fly miles and miles away. It seems to work pretty well with Faleris Aqua's, mainly this exclusive skill here, which is a very strong exclusive skill. It's like Divine Disaster power level, and then stab on that as well, and just bonus damage for being water, bonus damage to Curtain Splash. Is also a very strong attack against Xenolord. And then a couple of them have Meteorine, because I did make all of them have Meteorine, and then I lost a couple with the Dimensional Box bug, and I didn't notice it for a long while, so I never really had the autosave to get them back, so I ended up just remaking a couple without going for Meteorine just to get it done, just to have a filler. So I think 5 of them survived, and I lost, I think I lost 15 Meteor, or 10 Meteorine Faleris Aquas in that bug. So I remade them, but I felt like just going by these kills, 5 Meteorines seems to be enough. You don't need more than 5 or 6 probably. Depends a little bit on how quickly you get Xenolord to that phase 1 and phase 2. If it sinks, like doing 2 high DPS can be bad sometimes. You kind of want him to enter the phases in sync with these cooldowns on Meteorine, or whatever skill you're using to clear ads. So as mentioned, I really find this Xenolord raid interesting just because of that mechanic, that it's just a pure, not a pure DPS race, because then you would probably just use Lightning Streak on everything, but Lightning Streak isn't great against ads. Same thing with Wall Splash, not great against ads, so here you see some pals ending up on the cliffs, but sometimes it didn't make a huge difference. They would kind of fall down themselves, one of them up in the tree. You can see they kind of jump down on their own. It's good and bad. Sometimes your pals get stuck trying to target the pals on the cliffs, and sometimes the pals on the cliffs are sort of outside the fight, which is good. So it can be good and bad. Depends a little bit on what your raid army AI decides to do. About Faleris Aqua itself, great exclusive skill. Does get this stab damage on the exclusive skill and Curtain Splash, which is great. It's a water pal, so it doesn't burn, which seems to be just a big benefit here. So mostly it's pals that have been resisting the dragon attacks that make it through these fights, just because Beam Slicer, Blast Cannon, you got the Cosmic Meteor, Omega Laser, Meteorine. So you want pals that resist that, and then being dragon is usually good to resist all the dark pals as well, all those little ads. And then resisting fire. But you can see the strength right here in the Faleris Aqua army. They don't have any of these fancy resistances, they're just not burning. And that seems to be enough as well with... They are bugging out a little here, trying to focus on these pals on the cliff, so maybe they would have been even better if I did a couple of more fights. They just got the 2 attempts here. And this one is turning out to be pretty good, even if they're standing facing the wall for quite a while. Grouping up as well is not great, so one of the benefits of having a skill like the Phoenix Tide is that the pals split up. It's like the reverse glacial impact on Bastic, where you kind of want your pals to be spreading out. It's something that we've been doing ever since Libro released, with running stuff like Crystal Wing and stuff like that, just mixing in some skills to spread pals out so they don't all eat the same beam slicer and stuff like that. So a surprise win here. I wasn't expecting it to succeed. Gonna clear out that as well. So a surprise win for the Faleris Aqua. Then we have the Orserks, which are... I decided not to use Polycura Unos. I still haven't updated the website with it, but it is not a great skill. Lightning Streak does a lot better. The Lightning Streak together with the special bonus from being electric should be a lot of DPS. So I'm not sure if I mentioned it too much, but Lightning Streak is one of the best attacks purely against Xenolord when he is like in range of it. But it doesn't do that well against all the ads, so you need something else to clear the ads. Luckily, all these Orserks have Meteor Rain, but since I saw that Faleris attempt, I've kind of been... This was the benefit with the Palpedia thing I was mentioning before. I noticed that I probably didn't need the full 15, or 13 I mean, Meteor Rains. So this is instead... I think I kept 6 Meteor Rains, and then put Blast Cannon on the rest of them. And hoping that a little bit higher single target DPS, a little bit lower area of effect clear, but 6 Meteor Rains is hopefully enough to make up the difference there. And then I was kind of torn on Lightning Streak versus Beam Slicer, but I felt like I didn't want to use the exact same skills. I feel like this Lightning Streak solo target with the Meteor Rain combo is probably the best way to go here. Just because of Orserks getting in pretty close, they're decently fast at moving into range. They don't tend to stand too far away. So here's an example. They all get tossed pretty far away. They all kind of scoot right back into the range and start laying down these multi-hits. Like if you can get 5 hits with Lightning Streak, it becomes extremely strong. Same thing with these Blast Cannons hitting multiple times as well. Blast Cannon versus Beam Slicer, I feel like Blast Cannon might be a little bit worse because it doesn't hit as hard per time it uses it. I think it's a little bit higher DPS, but it does do a larger area of effect, so you clear out some ads with that as well. Just Blast Cannon seems to be a very good skill. Beam Slicer coming in pretty close behind, and then having a little bit of Meteor Rain, and then benefit as well for Orserk. It does get the same element bonus on that as well. On the Meteor Rain, so it's got element bonus, like the 20% bonus on Electric and Dragon, probably helping it. Then it is a bit of a Glass Cannon. It's a very high attack stat, but very low defense. It also takes burn damage, so it's gonna be struggling against all these like burning effect skills. Struggles a little bit against the burn from Rio as well. So it's more Glass Cannon maybe than something like Ignis and Rio, as well as taking the burn. But then it's a little bit smaller as well. It's just a lot easier to breed attacks onto it, since it has 100% chance to inherit attacks. I think it's the only real top choice pal for that. Small hitbox there, big benefit with that Blast Cannon compared to something like Astegon. So maybe the fairest comparison here is the Astegon. Astegon is a little bit bigger and has worse resistances, but they're both these like non-fire dragon pals. Getting pretty close now. We got, I think that's 2 Orserks left. One of them going down to that one. 1 Orserk left. It's hungry and really down to the wire there. One more attack from Xenolord would have done it. 1 Orserk left. It does get the W, but I don't think it's going to get much closer. I don't think you can get much closer than that. That was 1 attack left. For some reason, Xenolord decided to focus the dead one. It does do that sometimes. So the Orserk does get the W, but very close. But I feel like the time was pretty decent. Gonna have to see after all these raids are done. Now we got the Paladius army, another favorite here, up there with Ignis, Bastigor, and Rio probably as the top 4. So it's been used quite a lot for raiding Ultra and stuff like that. It gets the Holy Burst bonus damage on that from being neutral. A little bit lacking in resistances, but it does get stuff like Absolute Frost. It has a huge amount of defensive stats, so it's a little bit weaker in the attack stat compared to like a Ignis or something like that, but it has, I think it's the 3rd highest total stats in the game. So it's just a pure bulk pal. Very high defense, pretty high health, And then it does have a respectable, like it's 120 attack compared to Ignis 130. And then you get the same element bonus on Airblade and Holy Burst. So a little bit harder hitting Holy Bursts than other pals. You can see that they kind of stack pretty close, so hitting multiple 5-hit Airblades with stab bonus as well. So just a huge amount of burst damage to start the fight, but they are getting burnt down. We already have one Paladius going down, a bit of a surprise there. One going down that quickly. Maybe this isn't the best timing with the Absolute Frost, so hopefully they can... Okay, they just tanked the entire last cannon there. But a lot of Holy Burst, hopefully clearing out those adds. How many Paladius are left? Was that like 6 of them? And then they take the... So they do take super effective damage from the dark attack. So not looking that great. I thought they were going to bulk through that a lot harder. And I'm also using these 13 Absolute Frost. So for the legendary pals, I decided to keep the breeding exclusive on all 13. So Jet Dragon will be running 13 Meteor Rains, Frostallion 13 Double Blizzard Spikes, and 13 Absolute Frosts here. They are on the second ad phase, but now they're just being torn apart by all these dark pals. They're not really overpowering them with Area of Effect. So we're gonna see. I was expecting this one to be a little bit better here. Gonna do a couple of more fights and see, I guess. Okay, so I did do 3 fights with Paladius just to see if it was kind of a fluke. But the first attempt seemed to be the best one actually. So we had the second fight and then I added a third fight just to see, because I was expecting them to do better, but it looks like Paladius has a very high amount of burst damage, but then it just gets overwhelmed by all the burn damage and the dark pals and the dark attacks coming out from Xenolord. So Paladius came in second there, adding them to the previous video. We got Anubis doing pretty bad, even worse than the Loop Moon, but I mean, it's not an ice pal, so it is what it is there. Then we had the Ignis doing very well. Orserk winning with just 1 pal left, but it did win pretty quickly compared to the Faleris. So a big surprise here, I guess, or the upset here, is that Paladius not doing great. And then we had the Ignis doing a lot more damage with that Beam Slicer build. So yeah, a little bit surprised about that Paladius. We'll see how it plays out with the rest of the armies coming in here, but surprising it didn't win when the Faleris and the Orserk did win. And that's with 3 fights as well, so it lost 3 out of 3. But that's it for part 2. Thanks for watching.